What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the MMB Performance Podcast. And I got to say, I'm very grateful and very excited for today's guest on the podcast. We have never met, so we might be a little bit give and take on this podcast, getting to know each other a little bit better. But Scott Jenkins is who we're going to have on the podcast. And if you don't know Scott, he's someone I would highly recommend and definitely give this whole podcast a listen. He completed, and I want to get this correct, the Triple Crown of 200s this past year, and which is three 200-mile races in about a 5.5 week span. One of them, two being a little over 200, one being over 240. And if you get me right, it was the mix of the Moab, the Tahoe, and the Bigfoot, the big three.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, those three races. And yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show, Jeff. It's great to be
That's
here.
absolutely, man. And I'm excited because we're going to dive into a lot. I mean, from the beginning of your endurance world, where you're 75 marathons in 75 days to all these different ultras you've done. And something, we haven't talked much about, but my master's was in sports psychology. So I love the mental performance side. And I think that's why I've followed you and connected with you well, at least of your journey, is the mindset it takes to do these races and just continuing to grow. The first question I got for you is, when you got into this sport, you mentioned in other podcasts and stuff that the 75 marathons in 75 days was kind of that first leap. What
Yeah.
initially made you make that jump to even try something like that? Because that's a big leap from a marathon or a half a marathon or something like that.
Yeah. And I think you make some great points there as well. Like, I do think like ultra running, just to start things off, like it's such a mental sport as much as physical. And quite often, I would say it's even 75% mental, 25% physical. It comes down to how much you're willing to suffer and how long you can suffer. And that's something I've learned over the course of the kind of last 13 years of ultra running. But just to rewind, yeah, when I got into ultra running, it was, yeah, by accident almost in a way. So I was working in a gym in South Wales. I'm from Wales originally, working in a gym. And every week, this guy used to come in, a guy called Colin, and he'd had a heart attack. And he was recovering. Obviously, coming to the gym was part of his rehabilitation. And I would work with this guy. And every week he'd come in and he would be smiling. And I was thinking, I've got to ask him, like, why is he so happy? And it was a fairly obvious answer. I said, Colin, why are you so happy? You come in here every week, you're always smiling, always joking. He said, well, I feel like I've had a second chance at life. I went, oh, okay, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. And it didn't really land with me, probably not for like a few weeks, but like I thought about it, what he said, and kind of got me started thinking, well, I'm on my first could be my only shot at life, right? And what am I doing that I want to look back on with some fondness when, I get to Colin's age when I'm older and, I'm on the sofa, not just watching Netflix. Hopefully I've got something to reflect on. And I thought, well, I want to do more. I want to have more adventure in my life. And I also want to do more to help others. And from that conversation, me and my younger brother Reese, we had a conversation. We were talking about running and how sometimes you can go out for a run and you can just keep going and going and going. And our friend Rusty, who's from Texas, he felt the same way, always enjoyed running, and all three of us still do. And I just thought, well, wouldn't it be great to raise something for the British Heart Foundation? And we all came up with this idea of running 2,000 miles across the US from Boston in Massachusetts to Austin in Texas. It was a marathon a day for 75 days. All honesty, like I think if I'd known beforehand like how difficult it was gonna be, like
Sure.
I'm not sure I would have signed up for it. But once,
Right.
working in a gym, not making loads of cash, and like, once I signed up, I was in. Like there was no way that I was going to be able to like mess around my flights, fly back. So how we came to Boston. We started on Boylston Street from a bar that was called McGreevy's then. I forget what it's called now, but it still exists. I went there in January for a drink, a quick whiskey to toast the run. I don't think they thought I'd just come back from the run like 13 years later. I think they
Sure.
realized I was just coming in for a drink. Anyway, yeah, ran 26.2 miles in the direction of the southwest and stopped, went to the nearest town, tried to find a hotel for the night, negotiated that, got back up the next day and went again. And we just did that consistently for 75 days. It was a real adventure and a journey of discovery where I kind of learned a lot about myself and yeah, lessons that I think have stuck with me for, well, will stick with me for the rest of my life for sure.
It's an incredible feat. I mean, it's you see these challenges that go out. Can you run a mile a day, a 5K a day, and then you take it to this level of that? And I think to your point, there was so much meaning behind the whole mission, and
Yeah.
you had a big why of like why you wanted to do it, and I'm sure that was something reflecting on. And you had a great team to do that. You brought up, you learned a lot about yourself. What were you think like one or two of the biggest takeaways from one taking that leap? Because I think fear is what scares people from doing so many things that and I love that you brought this up in many other situations, other podcasts, is that people are obsessed with being comfortable. And one of my big things that I talk about is chasing discomfort. And you learn the most about yourself when you're in the most uncomfortable situations and facing that adversity. And I think that's why I love fitness, because
Yeah.
it's that you may be in the depths of the suck, but then you work through it and you come out the other side, you sit back and you can reflect. So I guess like what were like the biggest takeaways for you? And I know that's a big piece of what you do and talk about.
Yeah, I think, there are many kind of takeaways, some that I didn't know at the time would become takeaways in my later life, I suppose. But I think the one for me, Simon Sinek says it perfectly, start with why, right? But if you've got a big why in whatever task you're approaching, then that is always a point of reference for you to use as a motivating factor. It just so happens that for me, like doing these ultra running events, the why has been the charitable side of things. And, it's not always what keeps you moving forward, but you've always got that commitment that you're out there to try and help other people and you don't want to let people down. That's certainly the way I approach it. And then I think, you just touched on it then about this comfortable being uncomfortable kind of phrase, which, is easy to say, but actually, if you think about like every big accomplishment that people achieve in their lives, whether, it's going for that job promotion, running 200 miles, a marathon, 10K, whatever it is that kind of scares someone, it involves being uncomfortable, right? And if you can look yourself in the face and say, or look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try and accomplish this. And if I don't, then I'll take some great lessons from it. And if I do, then I will, I'll feel this great sense of accomplishment. And again, like if you think about it, when you go for that interview for a big job and, you're scared, you go into it and you think, oh, what if I go wrong? What if I mess it up? And, yeah, you might be disappointed, but you'll take some good learnings. But if you do get that job, the sense of accomplishment by putting yourself outside of your comfort zone is, you feel so relieved, so happy. And I think it's good to seek those experiences like personally and also professionally to help ourselves develop for sure. And I've come up with this phrase, it seems pretty basic, but it's true. Like humans have mistaken comfort for happiness. I genuinely believe that. And then again, an example of that, I work from home today. I sat in the chair, I worked all day. And at the end of the day, I got up, I'm tired. I was thinking, I trained this morning, but I'm not that tired from training. I've been sat down all day. And actually, you just feel not angry, but a little bit like not great. Like you've been sat down. It's not really
Yeah.
a effective way for us to be as humans. And actually, some of the happiest times for me are being out on the trails. So I think, that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to be out. We're meant to be active. We're meant to hunt our food. And now we just get it delivered. It comes on a takeaway or, you get it from the supermarket. And I'm not saying we have to all go outside and hunt down deer by chasing them for 4 days, but we have
Right.
to go outside and make sure we're feeling those elements in our face, the wind, the rain, the sun, all of those things. I think we as humans need that that connection with nature, I guess.
Well, I think so. I work with a lot of clients and it's a lot of general pop clients. And I don't think people realize what it feels like to feel good anymore, to actually move, to have energy, I mean, I'm not sure over, where you are, but in the States, I mean, obesity, people overweight, sedentary lifestyles, type 2 diabetes. I mean, and, you get clients that just like, hey, I'm going to have you just walk 30 minutes a day and work out 3 times a week and eat a little bit better. And all of a sudden they're like, wow, I'm sleeping better. My energy's better. All these things are improving. And to your point, I just think we're meant to move. We feel our bodies need to move to be healthy. And I think that's something that gets missed nowadays, at least definitely with the population I work with and around. And it's shocking how much better you can feel if you just are willing to move and not get that sit in that chair all day, every day, if possible.
Definitely, and like I can reflect on my time as a personal trainer, and like you would see the physical and mental benefits to people that perhaps have been in a sedentary lifestyle and they're trying to get out and better themselves, and take that first step, do that walk on the treadmill, the 5K, whatever it is, and you see that change in people. They become happier, they become healthier. I was watching a game show last night. It's a UK show called The Traitors. I'm not
Okay.
sure if it's quite good watching actually. It's yeah, very Machiavellian kind of show. People are trying to screw each other over and stuff. And they did this one task where like they basically had to run through a forest, like power hike, and you're looking at it, and all of them, to a man and woman, were absolutely knackered, just kind of going 400-500 meters. They're coupled over, and you're breathing. And it's not to poke fun, but like if you're looking at that as like a demographic of society, which it will have been because it was selected by the BBC at random, picking people and then putting them all together, you're like, wow, like we really need to get our stuff together, people. Like we need to take ownership for our health and responsibility. And if we do that, then hopefully we can live, long and healthy lives, and have the ability to go out and have those adventures, but also help other people too.
Sure. And you mentioned how you're kind of inspired by just living life, having memories. When you're in your 70s, 80s, you're sitting there and you can look at a list of like, look at this. I did Moab this many times. I did Bigfoot. I did Tahoe, Cocodona, Badwater. I mean, Triple Crown. I mean, you go through these lists of your accomplishments, and that's got to feel really good. Does some of that come from that fear of regret, or is it a different thought process that, continues to push you? Because a lot of people say they don't regret many things, but I'm someone personally who thinks of life very similar. I did my first 24-hour world's toughest mudder race this past
Hey,
year.
congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done. You're trying to accumulate, basically it's a 5 mile course. So you got 5 mile course, and it is 20 obstacles, water, cold water, ice, climbing, things like that. And you loop as many times in 24 hours. And whoever does the most wins. And that was the first time I've ever been on my feet for 24 hours. And signing up for it, my brain was kind of like, I don't know what we're doing signing up for this. Like, I know I want to try it, but it's double the different. I did a 10-hour race, but nothing like this. So your brain starts to play that game with you, but I just signed up, committed, and I have no doubts. I have no regret that I did it. Now I'm signed up for this year to try to break my record. But the fear of regretting never trying it was a big factor for me at times. Is that something for you at all?
Um, I would understand the regret on if there was a race that I really wanted to do, and I didn't get into it, then I'd have regret, kind of thinking, well, I wish I could have got into that race. But actually, for me, I think it's more about creating that life CV. People, we're all obsessed with, we're trying to do the best in our professional careers. We're trying to create this CV of experience that helps us to get that better job, helps us to, progress in life. And I kind of view like ultra running and adventure in the same way, in that, I want to have as many cool experiences as possible. Like, go out and see something like the sun setting over the La Salle Mountains on day 3 of running a 240-mile race, or, experiencing running across Death Valley in California, like 52 degrees Celsius. I live in London in the UK. Like I am not made for that temperature. And it's like, I need the factor 50 sun cream. I like that challenge of having to overcome the elements. It pushes you again outside of your comfort zone. That's for me, what I want to do. It's not about like living a life that, I don't want to regret this, that, and the other. Because inevitable, we can't do everything on our list. Like it's going to be very difficult to do that and cost a lot of money and take a lot of time. And most of us have the commitments and probably don't have the resource to be able to do everything we want to do. Like it'd be amazing to go and climb Everest. I'd love to do that. It cost me £60,000. I can't afford.
Yeah.
So I think just trying to find those life experiences helps us to grow as people. That hopefully one day we can then reflect on that list and go, Yeah, you know what? Maybe I did some cool shit along the way. It's been a ride. You know, what's that phrase about like I just want to come in, like, you know, turn up at the grave, sliding in sideways and falling into the hole kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
probably what I'm thinking.
Yeah, use it up while it's there. Use that body up, man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's better to get out and have this exercise and have these experiences than to just waste it sat on the sofa. Don't get me wrong, I like Netflix and I like a pizza takeaway as much as the next man or lady, but it's important to use our bodies, I think.
Yeah. And you just got to put a few miles in before you get on Netflix. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I sit my belt buckles. I haven't got like one of these nice hangers or like a metal room or anything like that. I literally stick them on my whiskey cabinet so that
I love that. That's amazing.
when I drink too much whiskey, it reminds me I should probably go for a run, and when I run too much, it reminds me I should probably have a whiskey.
It's funny you bring up the whiskey thing. You mentioned in one of your races. I don't know if it was one of the big three, and then I want to dive a little bit into the, your 200. And there was a race. Yeah, I just listened to it. You like were in the middle of the race. You were struggling a little bit. Sat down. Someone hands you a beer in the middle of the race. Just having a drink with a beer. Just kind of regrouping mentally. And I I love the nutrition side, but it's, was that one of those moments when you sit down, and you're like, I just need some mental clarity. I need to take a deep breath and relax, regroup, and then go back out.
That's exactly it. Like, you know, in a lot of these races like Moab or Cocodona, it can be really, really hot. And there's been a couple of incidents, I suppose, where I've had a beer in the middle of the race. And I think it's kind of reason for twofold. So the first one is that like when you run that long, you kind of get this not sickness, but like this real kind of like, I'm just done drinking Tailwind or Scratch or electrolyte drinks or Gatorade or Coke, and you're like, what can I drink? And then you're like, you know, what's really refreshing after you go for a long run? Oh, of course, nice cold one, right? A nice
Sure.
cold one, maybe a burger or something like that. And you know, very fortunately with the destination trail races, they're awesome. They have amazing aid stations and great volunteers as well. And you know, they'll be in the way in the back country, super remote, and you know, they'll be able to cook up a burger or a quesadilla or something like that. And yeah, there's been a few times where I've come into an aid station just really, really hot, really overheating, and just sit down, have a beer, takes the edge off, and go again. It's not for everyone, but it works
It
for
works
me.
for
And
you. Well,
yeah, yeah,
so
it works for me.
I think that's what's fascinating to me. And what I learned in my first 24-hour race is I kind of winged it a little bit. I had a game plan when it came to nutrition a little, but 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours in, you're sick of, like you said, you're sick of Tailwind, you're sick of electrolytes, and you start kind of going off kilter a little. When you're doing these 200 milers that are taking, 70, 80 hours, how much of your preparation from a nutrition side do you have a game plan like this? Because I think that's what it was fascinating to me is you could be in physically great shape, then it becomes mental warfare, and it's a suffer fest. And
Yeah.
then at a certain point, you have to be on top of your nutrition, or you're going to run out of gas. How much is planning to you, and how much is just every station you're just kind of going off by feel?
Yeah, there's a lot of planning that goes into it, but like Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the face, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's the great thing about ultra running is that it consistently punches you in the face, so to speak. Like you go out onto these races, and Moab is a great example of that. I've used it before as an example, but like Moab 240 miles in Utah in October, it could quite easily be 30 degrees Celsius, which I believe is about 90 Fahrenheit in the day. And then at night, you know, it's below zero. It's like 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can be really, really cold. And when you go to take on a race like that, your requirements in the heat of the day are going to be different to what you need at night. Like your drink rate, your sweat rate on the hydration side is going to be different in the daytime to in the nighttime. So if you keep drinking at the same rate in the evening when it's cooler, you know, you're going to drink too much fluid. So you've got to get that balance right. But that becomes more difficult the more tired you get because you're running so far. So then, you know, maybe something else becomes a problem. Like, okay, you know, I left my head torch in the aid station. Well, that could be a whole race over, or you leave your jacket, and you've constantly got to be kind of problem solving and thinking one step ahead, but also not making mistakes when you're tired. On the nutrition thing specifically, Like I've got a plan in place, so I know I take Vespa, which is optimizes fat metabolism. It's something I started using at Moab 240 last year. My coach Jeff Brannon told me about it. I was like, oh, this is really good. Like I don't need to carry so many calories. I can burn my own fat source as a source of energy. And then I carry gels, and then I carry plantains or potato chips, something like that, and maybe like a handful of like Haribo or gummy bears, something like that as well, just in case I want something. At night, I will occasionally take a can of Red Bull with me and smash that back just as the sun goes down to keep me moving. Um, I also stop taking caffeine like 4 hours before I'm going to sleep. So I roughly know what the plan is. The nutrition's always there, good to go. But you can't account for like, oh, what I thought was going to be amazing, it now tastes like ass. Like, two days of race, you're like, I just can't eat any more of that flavor gel. So you got to be prepared to flex. And I think the key to running a 200-mile race is having the ability to not get too carried away with the highs, too despondent with the lows, but put the problems into perspective, embrace them, and then move past them. And when you think about it, we talked about earlier about learning those lessons from ultra running that you can apply to life. I work in sales as a sales manager in London, competitive environment. You have big goals. It might take you like 12, 18 months to win an account over. It's the same thing. You're going to have problems that you encounter along the way, and you don't want to get too despondent with those problems, and you don't want to get too carried away with the perceived highs. Again, it's just about taking everything, put it into perspective, staying calm, and moving forward to achieve your goal, whether that's in business or in personal life challenges as well.
Oh, I love that. And from a mental standpoint, when you look at these three races, I think you mentioned, if I've heard it correctly in the past, that was of the three, was Bigfoot the hardest one for you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think Bigfoot is probably the most difficult race that I've encountered. I mean, there's other races out there that I know of that I would like to do and know they're hard. Bigfoot, I think, is especially difficult. Very, very hot on the first day because you're exposed on the side of Mount St. Helens. Also, 47,000 feet of elevation incline,
That's bonkers,
45.
man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And 47,000 feet of elevation decline as well. And it's all in super remote backwoods in, the Pacific Northwest. So there's no phone service. Like you're on your own. You got to get yourself out of any problems that occur. There's one climb, it's like 18 miles long and
Oh my
7,000
goodness.
again. 18 miles, like it's very difficult to find an 18-mile climb anywhere. So that kind of stuff is hard, but it's even harder when it's all unmaintained trail as well. So I mean, it's constantly astonishes me, like the quality of those races, like the course, the routing, just incredible work by Candice and the Destination Trail team. Like you just every time you suffer, you make a big climb, it's really hard. You get to the top and then you just got like this incredible view, and then you're back in the woods again. And it's great. It's really, really cool.
How much do you feel like, you know, so from like your first ever, the marathon, the 50, the 100, 150, is it to do these 200s, is it just continuing to prove that yourself that it's possible? And then you're kind of unlocking a new level to you because you get into that race, 40,000 feet climbing throughout the race, all the temperature change. It's got to be such a, scary thing to dive into it. At the same time, you feel prepared, but you're never running like that much at once in your training to get ready for it. So like, what is your mindset going into one of these races and approaches? Is it a lot of like that you're nervous, you're scared, you're excited? Um, I'm big on self-talk. I don't know if you are big on like what you're saying to yourself and how important that is throughout the race. What is your approach going into these big 200s or just any ultra in general?
I think going into the 200s, you know that it's a serious undertaking, and I don't think anyone should really be going in there without, realizing that it's going to physically and mentally be absolutely exhausting and test every fiber of your being. You do go through those phases of, perhaps you're lying in bed one night before the race and you think, oh my God, I've got to run 200 miles.
Of
Occasionally you
course.
start thinking you're like, you know, I'm going to be running for like 4 days. Like my colleagues in work are going to get up on Friday morning and they will, you know, go home on Monday evening and I'll still be running. And it's not even like you're just running around somewhere nice. Like these are really serious environments that, you know, if you're not on top of your game, you're going to make errors that could potentially cause you harm or people around you as well. So you've got to be prepared for that. I think there's almost, I think Courtney Dauwalter said it once in an interview, like there's so many things that could go wrong in a 200-mile race that you've just got to acknowledge it, embrace it, and then again, just move past it and know that, yeah, there's going to be challenges. And if you don't think that, then you shouldn't really be out there. But embracing that challenge is the key to kind of getting it done, I suppose. And you just learn so much from those situations that you realize that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. Like another example, not related to the 200s, but when I got back from running 75 marathons, 75 days, I ended up getting an interview with Johnson & Johnson, and they asked me to prepare a presentation about blood, sweat, and tears, you know, any topic I wanted. So I talked about running, you know, 2,000 miles. And the lady that hired me, Sam Whiting, you know, still know her today, and I'm so grateful she gave me that opportunity. She said to me, you know, if you can go and do that kind of thing for 75 days in a row, I can trust you to go and sell some hips and knees for me. So no, you're not going to give up. And yeah, I wouldn't have had the confidence to be able to apply for that job or go and present to that kind of audience without having learned the lessons from ultra running that gave me that kind of innate kind of belief that, yeah, you can get knocked down, you could get knocked back, you know, but anything's possible if you put the effort in.
I mean, that's a great little, just saying or speech that you can give to so many people that, are maybe struggling to even find themselves. I found myself through fitness. That was just a
Yeah.
insecure kid. And I built my confidence where in fitness, you can track progress. You see yourself improving and you get better and you get more miles. And that confidence, to your point exactly, translates into life. I was an introvert, went to an extrovert just because of all this. And I think it's awesome. And I wish more people would realize the effects of running or lifting weights or fitness in general, other than just the aesthetic, because there's so many positives that come from it.
Definitely. And like, again, like all these kind of weird crossover examples from ultra run to business, but like another example, somebody will come to me on the team and say, Scott, we really need to come and talk to this, you know, really upset customer. You need to talk to him about X, Y, Z. You know, he's really pissed off, that kind of thing. And you're like, oh, well, what's the big deal? I'll come and talk to them. It's no problem. Because I've got that reference point of like, that's not really that hard. Like standing on the start line of a 135-mile race to run, you know, that distance in 52-degree Celsius heat, 124 Fahrenheit. That's scary. That's hard. But actually having a conversation with somebody who's disgruntled, it's not that
It's not
is
that
it?
bad.
It's not that bad. No.
When you're going through Badwater or any of these 200s or just the heat, the cold, Courtney Delwalter talks about her pain cave. She goes into this pain cave where you got to dig deep and kind of almost tap into a different part of yourself to continue to push forward, because your brain, your body, like like your body is going to shut down if your brain shuts down, but your body has a lot more. You just got to keep your brain in that space. Do you have
Yeah.
something like that where you can tap in and, whether it's a zone you get into or something you say to yourself or something you think about? Or is there anything like that for you when you hit these dark spots or difficult spots in this race that may happen many times?
Yeah, and I've heard the pain cave phrase from Courtney as well, and I think it's really interesting. It's true. Like the sooner you can get to that point where almost everything hurts, you kind of just accept it, and you're like, that's my fate. I've just got to keep moving forward now. I don't so much like think, oh, I'm in the pain cave now. I just kind of think to myself, I'm running in an amazing place. Like I chose to put myself in this situation. I'm doing it for a great cause, and I'm just not going to give up. I'm just going to keep moving forward and not let people down. And that probably motivates me more than like, oh, you know, I'm in the pain cave, I'm carrying the boats, as David
The
Goggins would say.
Goggins, right.
Yeah. I'm just like, no, I'm just trying to have an adventure and do a little bit of good. I mean, I do think about like You know, some phrases come inside your head now and again, like Dean Karnas's like relentless forward motion. I like that one. That's a good motivating factor. I think the other thing that I do is that I always run with one headphone in and one out, obviously for safety. But like I keep you know, old school headphones. You don't need any of those shocks ones. I can tell you right now, like the cabled iPhone headphones are indestructible. I've literally put them in my pocket and waded through like 2 rivers and then pulled them back out and by accident and listened to them, and they work good. So I usually have got some music on, which is really interesting, the power of music as well. Like when, you know, it's a slower song, you can slow or you can speed up a little bit too. And I really like just kind of like music like Mumford and Sons or like Calvin Harris, just something to keep the mind ticking over, I suppose. And just enjoying the environment that you're in. Like I do feel very fortunate, you know, to be physically capable to go into these places to, you know, see things that people don't get to see by road unless you get there by the power of your own foot. So yeah, very lucky.
When you're training going into say these 200s, just for an example, because it seems like your new baseline is just continuing to grow, right? Like you've almost start to normalize, though it's only 100, it's only a 140, you know, and now it's just a 200. And unless they trick you, right, and it's 200, then 216, and then you get stuck in this, right?
Yeah, no comment on that, but that's definitely happened to me before.
There you go. So what is your, I don't think people realize that you don't have to be running like 200 miles a week to get ready for these potentially. And you could tell me, what is your, you know, building up to this, what does your mileage look like on a weekly? Because I think that's where some people have a misconception, maybe even trying a marathon or a half or a 50 or 100, that, you know, you got to put miles in, but it's not necessarily, if you're doing 240 miles, you're going to do 240 in a week.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you right now what my
I love it.
week
Yeah,
looks.
if you don't mind sharing, I'd love
No,
that.
no, I'm very happy to. So I've got a 100-mile race in 5 weeks' time. I thought it was 6 weeks, but it's 5 weeks. So looking at this, like let me just pull the calendar up. So tomorrow I've got like an hour power hike. Treadmill mountain session, so that'll be like a treadmill incline session on Thursday. Friday easy run. Saturday long easy run, 22 miles. Sunday easy run, 1 hour. Followed by immediately an hour and a half of treadmill climbs. And also on Friday, I've got strength and conditioning, stretching on Thursday, and tomorrow strength and conditioning as well. And obviously those are broken down into more detail, but that's just like the top line. So that's one of my big weeks, and then it'll be more of the same next week as well. So you absolutely do not have to go out and run like 100 miles a week. I mean, you can, but if we're honest with ourselves, like I work in a corporate job, I haven't got the time to be able to run those kind of miles. I'm not a professional. I just have to fit it in around my work and family commitments like most people do. And sometimes I think, you know, working out in the gym as a runner is, you know, you're into strength and conditioning as well as I am. And I absolutely love it. And I think it's such an important and often overlooked tool for a runner. And again, give an example of that. So running Bigfoot, I live in London, so Bigfoot's 47,000 feet of gain. Like there is no way I can find 47,000 feet of gain around here. So what I do is I get creative. You know, use the box in the gym. I do hikes on the treadmill on incline, runs on the treadmill on incline. I carry a heavy weighted vest on the treadmill. I do hikes and then get off and do box steps up onto a Rogue fitness box, back down onto the treadmill, back off steps, back onto the treadmill, those kind of things. And I like that. Like it makes it interesting. And I guess you know, the proof that it can work. It doesn't you don't have to live in the mountains to be able to go out and compete in these big races for sure.
My favorite thing about what you just said is it just takes away any excuses people have that they can't do it. You know, like
Yeah.
you don't have, you're like, I can't, you know, like my race I'm doing a 30-mile Spartan race in April, and it's about 10,000 feet of accumulation, not peak gain. But still, it's
Good
like, you
luck.
know, and then we don't have a lot. We have like a 500-foot mountain around, like close by. I can drive a little farther, but to your point,
Yeah.
it's like figure out a treadmill, get some boxes, do this. Just like there's ways to make it work, which again eliminates the excuses. It gives you more accountability that it is possible. And something, in the last 40 minutes of talking to you or so, you're a very humble guy and very kind of and I mean this in a great way. You're kind of like, it's almost like you take things very serious because obviously you put in a ton of work, but you don't take things too serious. Like these
Yeah.
races seem like you're like, yeah, it was challenging. I went through it, but it's something like obviously you enjoy. And I think, do you think sometimes people can get too serious about something and make it bigger than it is, and then that even stops them from even getting started sometimes?
Yeah, I think so. And thank you for the kind words. I always try to stay humble. I think it's T.S. Eliot said like humility is I think like he said it's the mark of greatness. And I don't think that about myself, but I do think like being humble is important. Like I'm very proud of where I come from, like in working class in South Wales. And yeah, I feel like a responsibility to try and get out there and have these adventures and also represent where I'm from as well. So that's very important to me, staying humble. So I appreciate you saying that. And then to kind of remind me of the question, you threw me
No,
off
I think
slightly.
a lot of people I can get in my head too, because you see the
I was getting too
Goggins,
carried
you
away.
see
Yeah,
these people that you gotta carry the boats and grind, and it's like sometimes it's like just get the miles in, mentally prepare, get out there,
yeah,
have fun, challenge yourself, and empty the tank. But I think for my first 24-hour, took it too serious and I didn't have fun with it because I was like, I gotta be in the zone and I gotta grind. And it's like, I think
yeah.
there's a fine line with that.
I think everyone needs to find their own approach to these challenges, whatever that challenge may be, whether it's 10K, 100K, or whatever it is. Everyone's got to find the approach that works for them. And like you say, you gave the example carrying a boat. It works for Goggins. That's who he is. Like he's a Navy SEAL, and I'm not a Navy SEAL. I can't pretend to go out there and give it all this like I'm going to carry the boats. I'm going to take people's souls. Nah, I'd much prefer to have a nice conversation alongside somebody.
Yeah, very different.
Maybe even have a beer in the aid
There
station.
you go.
Very different approach.
Run away from witches.
Yeah, yeah, definitely run away. That's who I am, and it's staying true to who I am, and that works for me. And I think if you stay true to yourself, you'll find a way that works for you too.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that makes complete sense. There's no cookie cutter way to do it, whether it's your training, whether it's your nutrition, and there's a lot of experts out there. I think try to be like, this is the way you got to do things, and sometimes it's just figuring out how to make it work with your lifestyle, your schedule, and what
Yeah.
you wanna do to do all this stuff. Um,
Definitely. And again, like, no, I guess I'm full of examples this afternoon or this evening, trying to force them in. But like, um, when I was, younger, like, I was quite introverted as well, and I still am to some extent. I'm quite quiet and considered, but I would never have said to you, "Hey, yeah, Scott, you're going to go and present in Boston at the National Run Show USA." I would have been absolutely terrified of doing that, not a chance. But through running, it's given me the confidence to kind of go, actually, yeah, you probably can do it if you think about things and you prepare properly and you put the effort in, you can do it. And that's the example of learning from these situations that help you develop in life by being uncomfortable, right?
have you always been like that introverted, humble, kind of quieter person growing up? And then do you feel like you're like as you got older, you just kind of became a little bit more introverted as you built confidence with yourself? Were you that quiet kid kind of growing up, or what was your I'm thinking of
I,
you as a kid and kind of just like that process maturation as you get older and get into this. I was just curious if that's something it's kind of was delivered from family as a young age, that humble quietness, keep to yourself a little bit more.
I think I've always been quiet, but determined. And I used to play football, rugby, not so much, a little bit, but not very much. And I learned a lot from that, a lot of discipline and that attitude of working hard. But I also learned, how to compete by putting in the maximum effort as much as possible. And then, I guess you learn morals and what you stand for is being respectful and for me, like humble. But still determined. I work in sales and hit my targets. I just approach it from a different different way that, you know, is different to maybe the next person in line, and everyone's got their own unique style. But two things I really don't really like is like arrogance and like rudeness, and those are the two things that I really just don't like at all. So yeah, I'm the opposite of that, I hope.
Are you married, Scott?
I am, yeah.
Any kids?
Yeah. Well, are you thinking of proposing? You're a bit late, sorry.
What was that?
I said, were you thinking of proposing? I'm sorry, you're a bit
No,
late.
no, my friend Kat, she's married
No,
too, but she was looking. So no, I'm just kidding.
I've heard about your friend Kat, and I would love to meet her actually.
So running are you gonna potentially be at the expo next year or the center?
Potentially, I'm sure I'll be stateside at some point. I understand, you know, chatting to yourself that Kat came along to the show twice, and it would be great to meet her. And just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to come out and see me talk. It meant a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Her and her friend, my friend Melissa, they're both trainers. They work with me. They went out. It was funny. They actually wore my like hoodies there. They looked like that was their business, but they came wearing my gear, which was super sweet of them. And yeah, I'll definitely we'll have to potentially I'll buy you a beer. We'll have to say what's up.
I would love that. That would be cool, mate.
That'd be great. And I'm curious about this too. You talked about the charity and the foundation with cleft lips and raising money and helping all these kids smile and how and it makes sense. It fits you so well why that's such an important thing to you because your energy about smiling and just the generosity and that side. It makes sense why you went to that origin. Is that something that inspires you on top of your running? Because obviously you enjoy the running, you do these races. There's a backstory, that inspiration's there. Is that something that also helps inspire you for these bigger races, knowing you're making a bigger impact than just yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it ties into that bit earlier that we were talking about trying to do some good. By that, I mean trying to help other people on our own journey in life. Like I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in to go out and have these adventures. Not everyone is, you know, and Operation Smile is an outstanding charity that basically performs surgical intervention for children with cleft lip or cleft palate deformities all around the world. And it's literally like, you know, children can be born with a cleft lip in the UK or America. That'd be fixed within, you know, a week, maybe even on the day of birth. It's fixed pretty quickly. In developing nations, like children are ostracized. They can't eat, they can't drink. They're sent away from the towns that they live, the families that they live with. And yeah, it's just really, really sad. And the thing for me that stands out about Operation Smile is like you and I get on this call tonight, right? And we've never met before, and we look each other through the screen, and first thing you do is smile. Like,
Right. You're like, hey.
yeah, like, hey, how's it going? Like, you know, a smile really is like the universal language of the world, and to not have the ability to do that, I think is very sad. And when you know that it only costs like $180, I know it's a lot of money like these days, but $180 to
Wow, I
like
didn't know it was that cheap.
yeah, to change someone's life, right?
Wow.
For you could go out for dinner in London, and you know, I spent that on dinner last week in London, like, and that could be someone's life change, right? You know,
Wow.
so again, putting things into perspective, and you know, I don't normally spend that much on dinner, just to be clear. And it
Couple
wasn't,
beers, couple beers.
yeah, a couple of beers, you know, it was nice, chilled. I was catching up with some friends I hadn't seen
That's
for a little
nice.
while. It was really nice, but you know, I think to myself that there's more children out there that I want to do my best to support by raising money for Operation Smile. I've been very lucky to raise through, and again, thank you to people who have followed and donated to the journey. But I've raised 135 smiles during the course of the last 8 years for Operation Smile, and I want to just keep doing as much of that as I can over the course of however long I've got left,
I
basically.
love that. I mean that's so awesome. So I have two golden retrievers. I have two dogs.
Oh,
Those
love
are my
dogs.
babies. So I don't have any kids right now. Me and my wife. But the dogs are my children. So we helped, we raised, it was only a couple $1,000, but I started to raise some money for some local shelters and things like that to help dogs. So, I love your mission. It'd be cool to, maybe for one of my bigger races, be able to even do something with you to try to raise some money for that. I think that would be
That would
really
be
cool.
awesome. That would be really, really cool. I would love that. Thank
I'd
you,
love to be
man.
part of that. So I think that would be really cool.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jeff.
yeah, absolutely. Like it inspires me because I think there's different points when you're doing one of these races, and the bigger the community, like how important your team is for everything you do and the people you surround yourself with. And I know, how important that is. And when you're doing it for a bigger purpose than just yourself, it helps keep you a little more accountable, but like, it's such a rewarding thing. You're doing something great, you're helping someone, and you're already doing it anyway. So if you can bring attention to something that, is a win-win, it feels good all around. It's a great thing.
Yeah, and I would say this as well. Like, I did all right in the Triple Crown. I finished fifth overall and fourth place male, but I would swap that every time for hitting my fundraising target, which was raising 135 smiles. And
So how much
that's
is that, how many smile, like how much would that end up being? Is there a number and a goal you're trying to get to?
no, it was just the last year was the 35th anniversary of Johnson & Johnson's partnership with Operation
Okay.
Smile. In the course of my lifetime, I'd raised 92. So I thought, well, why not try to get
How much
100?
is each smile? Like if we were to try to raise some money.
It's $180, so about
Okay.
150 pounds.
And you're at
And
how much right now?
um, I don't even know. Like over the course, I've got so many different fundraising pages over
Oh, that's
the
okay. I was just curious. I'm thinking a number in my head. You got me curious.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So,
I
but
love
from my
that.
perspective, like I just mark it in terms of like, okay, that's another smile. Like one more, let's
That's
do
so
another.
great.
Thanks,
Um,
man. I appreciate it.
no,
Keeps
I
me.
love it. So I have one more thing I want to bring up regarding the races, in regard to and we're on like a positive topic, so it's kind of a good transition. You've had so many big races and thousands of memories. Are there a few moments, maybe at some of the bigger races or when you're first starting, that really stick with you, that are just some really great memories, or even telling one or two memories or stories you have just from some of these races? Because I think other people don't realize it's a sufferfest, it's a grind. But whether it's with your team or those realizations you have on your own, there's so many great memories that happen during these experiences that stick with you forever. Are there a few that really stick with you? Maybe there's fresh ones or ones from before.
Yeah, there are a few, and I think sometimes it's hard to kind of because you always it's just my nature. I start to think about I've done that. What's the next goal? What's the next goal?
Checking
And
the
you've
box
done
off, right? What's the
yeah,
next
yeah,
thing?
and I don't like to dine out on it. I'm like, if you look at my Instagram page, there's a couple of posts on the Triple Crown and the races, but I don't post the same stuff like all the time. Like I just kind of think, well, that's done. Like it's in the bag. Let's go and get something else now. Um, it's only when like somebody like yourself asks you that kind of question, you start like flashing back and thinking through things, and you're like, yeah, there's so many crazy stuff that's kind of happened during races. I can give you three examples from the Triple
I
Crown
love
that
it. That'd
just
be great.
three examples from the Triple Crown, and I'll tell you another story too. So, at the third day of the Moab 240, 10,000 feet up in the La Salle Mountains, coming up the trail off to the left-hand side, two mountain lions just like staring at me and my pacer. I'm just like, I'm from London. I don't know what to do with mountain lions. I'm just like, what do we do? They
Yeah.
started shouting at these lions, and they're just
Wow.
looking at me like just sharpening their claws, and I'm like, just shut up, this isn't going to work. So we start like walking up the trail, and yeah, we walked, and they never followed us. Like that's something that I'll never forget. Bigfoot, me and my pacer linear, and we were coming down this huge climb in the middle of nowhere. The gunshots. I'm like, is that gunshots? And she's like, I think so. And we get into this small clearing in the middle of nowhere, and there's this pickup truck and two good old boys is probably the best way to describe them, with bottles of beer on the side of a tree, just shooting them off. I said, guys, whoa, 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 whoa. This runner's coming through here. And they're like, they turn around with guns like, what? Like, they don't
Right.
realize this runner's doing a 200-mile race. I mean, why would they? That's bizarre in the first place. And the guy says, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, real friendly guy. He said, you look real hungry. Do you want something to eat? I was like, oh, yeah, I'm starving. I said, God. He goes, oh, I'll come back now. He comes back over and he gives me a tomato. And I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh, the last thing you want.
like the last thing on my list, like I was expecting maybe a packet of chips, maybe I know some sweets, maybe a bar of chocolate. No, he brings out what I would call a tomato. hands it to me, and I'm looking at it like,
I
delicious.
don't like tomatoes in general.
Yeah, not for me. So that was that, and then Tahoe, very similar thing, running up the trail on the third day again, and yeah, two bear cubs in the middle of the trail. Mama bear stands up, and I got a photo of that, and I was just like, wow, that's something that'll stick with me for the rest of my life. And then another one which was really strange was back in 2010 when we were doing the 75 marathons, 75 days. Um, the most stressful thing about that was when you'd end up running in the dark. So the only thing that you would be concerned about on a day-to-day basis was like, where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Where am I going to get, shelter from? That kind of thing, food, all that kind of stuff. Maslow's bottom of hierarchy of needs. So the one day we started in a storm warning, tornado warning for like Tennessee, somewhere like that, or maybe Kentucky, I can't remember. And we're running down this country road, and it just seemed to go on and on and on. I knew we started late, so I thought, oh, we're going to end up running in the dark tonight. And it wasn't really stressful that you'd be in the dark, but it'd be in the dark on your own because my brother might be 2 miles up ahead of me or 2 miles behind. Rusty might be somewhere else. We didn't have a car alongside us, one small headlight. That's it. So I'm running up this back road. It must have been near Kentucky, like right on the border with Tennessee, middle of nowhere, right in the boonies, as you guys would call it.
Yep.
And this car pulls up behind me, and nothing happens other than this car is just sat behind me with headlights on. So I'm like looking, I'm like, oh my God, like this is going to be like that Deliverance film with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Like this is going to be, I think it's Burt Reynolds.
It's the
Anyway,
end.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, this is it. Anyway, the car pulls alongside me, and there's this guy and the girl, and like, what are you doing out here? And I said, well, I'm running from Boston in Massachusetts to Austin in Texas.
Like,
Their
what is
jaws,
this guy on?
they're like, he's. I think he needs to. We need to commit him. Like, let's get him back sectioned. Let's get him sectioned to a special hospital. So they like driving alongside me. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm doing this run for charity. So they said, do you want some help? I was like, yeah. They said, well, I'll get out of the car and run with you. So the girl gets out of the passenger seat of the car and she starts running alongside me. So we get to chatting. I said, what's your boyfriend doing? She's like, oh, he's just going to follow us with the headlights on. So, people know you're here and you're safe. And immediately I felt really relaxed. Like, okay, I'm okay now. These people are going to look after me. So we're running and I'm chatting to this girl and telling her a little bit about the run, telling her about myself. I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Oh, my name's Destiny." I said, "Oh, wow, like it's a real pleasure to meet you." And I'm like, "It's an interesting name." I said, "Look, should be done in like a few miles. My car will be there, the crew will be there, and we'll be done." So eventually we turn this bend and it's like a T junction and you can see the headlights of the support vehicle and the guys up ahead. So I said, "Oh, that's them up there." Destiny goes, "Oh, well, look, I'll give you my Facebook, I'll give you my Twitter." It was before Instagram, right? So they're like, you can add me on there. So she gets in and the car takes off and it just goes. And they go past the end of the car, the T junction where our car is, and it just goes. And I get to the car, and I get in the car, and I'm like, guys, you're not going to believe this. Like, just running, and these two people like just turned up and supported me for like the last 45 minutes. Like, one was driving behind, the other one, the girl was running with me. I said, the car just drove past a minute ago. They went, "Scott, we've been here for like 45 minutes and we haven't seen a car go past once."
No way.
And I was like, what just happened? Um, crazy, crazy,
That's
crazy.
wild.
So then I go back to the hotel, get on the Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi has just become a thing pretty much. I get on the Wi-Fi and like go to add this person on Facebook. Doesn't exist on
That's
Twitter.
terrifying.
It's scary, right? And
Right?
to this day, I still can't explain it. I don't know whether, and I'm not a spiritual person, but like I don't know whether it was just something that I imagined as a figment of my imagination at a time that I needed it most, or whether
Wow.
something happened that supported me when I needed it most, but something happened.
A woman named Destiny running with you at a tough moment. I mean, that's crazy. It's one thing is if you're 200 hours sleep deprived, you know what I mean? Or 80
Yeah.
hours sleep deprived. I mean, but that's crazy, man. I mean, that's obviously something you're not going to forget, to say the least.
No, it's
That's a
something I
great
don't really
story.
talk about that much either as well. It's the first time I've talked about it in a while because you forget about it. But it was because you mentioned like, oh, tell us something that sticks out. I'm like, oh
I
yeah,
love that. That is a crazy story. And it's one of those I mean, I would get like I feel like if I said that and it was my scenario, that would be like a chill moment. You're like, "Whoa." Like when your
yeah,
friend said they didn't see her, I mean, it's like, "What? What do you mean?
yeah,
You're playing with me. Stop playing with me."
yeah, exactly. Just no.
Wow, man. No, I appreciate you telling those stories. That's awesome. Because I think that's the fun stuff that I try to I like to hear about because it's the stuff that we know you are an absolute humble beast that
Yeah.
accomplished some insane feats, physically, mentally, and all this stuff. And like those little stories are always fun to hear. Your experiences throughout these things. So I appreciate you saying that.
No,
Um,
thanks for asking the question.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
man. One last question, and I'll let you get going. For I like to give advice to people when I can, especially that are getting into running and it could let's say it like this, whether it's someone trying to get started for the first time, which can be a scary feat, or someone that wants to really take it to the next level, maybe their first ultra, the first 100, whatever that might be. What advice would you give someone that's on the fence getting into running, or taking it to the next level even, but they're scared to take that step? The fear is there. It's scary. It's something new, or it's something that they've never done before.
Um, my first bit of advice would be just straight up do it. My second piece of advice relates to what we talked about earlier about being uncomfortable is how we truly develop and move forward and as humans, whatever it is that you do in life. And I think it's okay to fail as well. Like just try. I think the real failure is not trying. And if you do come up short in something, like I think the key to learning from failure is not just to kind of talk about it, but actually, can you have the ability to alter your course of action when you're later faced with the same circumstances to have a positive outcome? And I think you'll never get to experience that if you don't even try. So it's okay to fail daring greatly and doing the best that you can. I think what's not okay is to think about a goal and really want to do it, but not to do it, because then you will have those regrets in life. And I think a lot of people will learn so much about themselves if they go out and just take on these kind of challenges, because like we talked about earlier, like when you're scared and you're outside of that comfort zone and you're desperately trying to get comfortable doing something that scares you, when you do finally get comfortable, the sense of accomplishment is overwhelming. So it would be my advice.
I
Give it a
love it.
go.
I appreciate you telling that, Scott, and I appreciate you taking the last hour plus
No,
to talk
yeah,
with me, man.
it's been a real pleasure. You've asked some great questions, and it's been really thought provoking for me, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for reaching out, and thank you for having me on the show. Been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And
And
say hi to Kat for me as well.
what was that?
Say hi to your mate Kat for me as
I
well.
will. I will. And we'll, like I said, we'll get a beer and we'll make her day. So, I appreciate it, Scott. Till next time, guys. Make sure you subscribe, follow Scott on Instagram, Scott Jenkins, Simple Strat.
Yeah, Scott J. Jenkins on Instagram or same thing on Facebook. Yeah, if you look for a
Perfect.
middle-aged, gray-haired guy, that'll be me.
All right. Awesome. Till next time, guys. Have a good one. Chase discomfort, and I'll see you guys next time.